All right, I'm here with Erica Solm-Wrench with Rasa. Erica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, can you, in a couple sentences, briefly explain what is Rasa and how do you guys support nonprofits?
Absolutely. So what we do at rasa.io is we help folks stay in touch with their audience of donors, of members, of subscribers in a meaningful, relevant way using AI to personalize engaging content. And we automate away a lot of the tedious tasks that come along with newsletter production. So people know how important newsletters are, but a lot of times don't do them because it takes so long. So we make the process way more efficient, and we use artificial intelligence to personalize the news content that every single donor, member, subscriber reads.
Okay, so you mentioned artificial intelligence. That's a word that is a little jargony and kind of intimidating for someone like me who is not good with technology. My experience with artificial intelligence is watching movies and,
Killer
you know,
robots, right?
yeah, and they're like coming to take over the world. So when you talk about artificial intelligence as it relates to email marketing, can you explain what does that actually look like?
Absolutely. So our platform is actually using AI in a few ways. So one way that's super approachable and people should be very familiar with is our recommendation engine. And everyone is familiar with recommendation engines because you scroll through your social media feeds, and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, for better or worse, know what content to put in your feed because they've learned about you. So we learn about our readers, our subscribers, or our clients, readers and subscribers and donors rather. And then we know intelligently what content to feed them in an email. So in the same way you're scrolling through your feed in whatever social media platform you prefer, and that platform knows what to serve you up, we're going to serve up your subscribers and your donors and your members the right content in an email. And we're also using AI and a few other cool ways. We use AI for the visual of our emails as well. So we will take an imagery that comes in with an article that's produced, and we will make that image fall in line in a nice area within an email template so everything looks clean. We use AI for natural language processing, and we'll read and conceptualize all the articles that come into Rasa so we understand what they're about in order to recommend them to people. So it's AI within the marketing realm and within the email space can be a lot more approachable to marketers, and they don't have to be super intimidated by the jargon and the term.
Right. And where are you pulling this content from? Like if I'm a nonprofit leader and I'm using Rasa to come up with email content that I know that my donors are really going to want to engage with, where does that content come from?
That is a great question. So we can pull in content from all different places. First and foremost, people probably are going to want to start with their own website or their own blog. Most people have some sort of blog or some sort of article feed on their website. So you can plug that into Rasa, and whenever it publishes, we're going to pull that into Rasa. So that's one kind of content that will qualify for your newsletter. We also recommend people plug in their social media channels. So whenever you publish or share an article to your Twitter feed or your Facebook feed or your LinkedIn profile, we're going to pull that into Rasa. And then we also recommend that folks plug in some external sources that will help educate their donors about their cause. So if you know that they're really trustworthy, awesome, newsworthy sources that are regularly publishing content that really highlight the importance of whatever cause you and space you're in, you plug those into Rasa, and we can pull that in as well. And you can also filter down those sources. So you could say, well, sometimes Harvard Business Review, for example, publishes content that relates to my cause. But we only want it to come in if it hits on environmental terms and phrases. You can easily filter that down as well. And so we get this really nutritious pool of content to draw from to feed to your donors.
Really cool. Well, I love how neatly you explained what artificial intelligence is with email newsletters, but I do want to back up for a minute and talk about how nonprofits should actually be using email newsletters to keep in touch with donors, because something I hear a lot from listeners of this show is they know that they should have an email newsletter, but they're afraid of quote unquote like bothering donors, or they're not sure how often to put out email newsletters or what donors actually want to hear. So
Yeah,
how should nonprofits be using email newsletters to keep in touch with their donors?
absolutely. I think that's a great question. And it's going to be a balance, right? So oftentimes we hear from our clients, we work with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of professional and trade associations, and they're scared of, like you said, bothering people. But we think of a newsletter at RASA is providing value in your donors and subscribers' life. So whereas many people only send out a newsletter when it's like, hey, we want you to donate or volunteer or buy our stuff. Think about it as a tool where you can provide value through interesting content that might not necessarily have an explicit call to action all the time. Maybe you're just sharing, hey, this is what's important. This is coming from us. There's a sprinkling of external content, a sprinkling of internal content. And it's a really great way to stay in touch with people and promote brand awareness. And brand awareness is something that I think sometimes gets lost because you just think about, like, you have a goal that you want to meet, you have a certain amount of money that you want to hit. And so you think, like, how do I get there directly? But in so many cases, it's the long game. And what a newsletter helps you do is stay a relevant presence in someone's inbox, so that when it does come to holiday time and someone is ready to be a little bit more generous, they're going to think about you. They're going to think about the organization that's been a constant presence in their lives and has been, subtly promoting themselves when it comes for them to make that donation. So that's a newsletter is so important. It's like the long game, right?
Absolutely. So when you're sending out email newsletters, especially in between the appeals, because it is important to make sure that you're not just emailing twice a year just to ask for more money, right?
Right.
So when you're sending those in between email newsletters, what should those newsletters contain?
So, in the ones that you are making the appeal, or the ones where you're not making the appeal?
The ones where you're not making an appeal.
Yeah, I think that, so it's first and foremost super important to keep people aware of what you're up to, what you're doing, why your cause is relevant, what are the latest happenings. Maybe there's a story that you want to highlight. People love a good story. People want to understand who is benefiting from, the all the work that you're doing, or what causes, how the cause is being benefited. And then other news that promotes the cause. So it might not be news that you publish, but other stories and white papers and journal publications that talk about and that share information that kind of bolster your own cause and show why your organization is so worthy.
Yeah. And then what about the newsletters that do contain an appeal? What what should the format be for those newsletters?
Absolutely. So I think it's really important to place your call to action in a really obvious way. We tell our clients to oftentimes have their, if they're a trade association or professional association, have their renew button at the very top, super prominent, because oftentimes they have members that lapse, that don't that don't pay their renewal fees. And it might just be because it's not easy to do so. So you want to make it very prominent, the donate, the volunteer, whatever call to action you're asking for. You probably want that, as we say, to be above the fold. You don't want people to have to scroll too far down. You want it to be nice and high and obvious, and then have it a couple other times as well. I mean, if you're really driving home a certain call to action, sprinkle it throughout the body of the email as well.
Yeah. So when I am working with nonprofit organizations, something that we talk about a lot when it comes to strategy for their email newsletter is what should the, I guess, order of the newsletter be like? So
Mhm.
you're talking about above the fold. That phrase comes from back in the days when newspapers were our biggest source of
Yeah,
information.
right.
You have the newspaper folded in half, and you want the most important eye-catching stories above the fold and the
Mhm.
front, the top front of the newspaper.
Yes.
So you mentioned you want, if you have an appeal, you want that appeal to be above the fold. What should sort of the order or layout of the rest of your email newsletter look like?
Sure. I think it's really beneficial when your donors, your community of folks can hear from you, the editor of the newsletter, or even, the executive director who's leading your organization. So, infusing some copy that is a note on, the latest happenings, really a great success story that goes along with your organization, putting that some copy to appeal to people's emotions and to share your story can be really beneficial. And then, folding in some internal and external content down below all of that.
Got it. That totally makes sense. So,
Mhm.
one question I get from nonprofit leaders very frequently, and I'd love your expert opinion, is how often nonprofits should be sending out their email newsletters to donors.
So we recommend once a week is a good newsletter cadence for especially for spaces that have good news in the space. So if you're in a really niche area where your cause doesn't have a ton of external news flowing around it, maybe once every other week, but we say try to aim for once a week to stay a constant presence, especially if there is relevant news in your space. Sometimes we work with really, really, really niche organizations and there just isn't a ton of late breaking news about their particular cause or space, and we understand them. They just don't have enough to fill up a newsletter. But typically, once a week is a goal that you can hit if you're sending out compelling, interesting content.
And then we already talked a little bit about fundraising campaigns through email. You mentioned putting that call to action several times throughout the email newsletter, make it super easy for people to follow through. What other advice do you have for fundraising campaigns through email?
Yeah, so aside, obviously the world I live in is email newsletters, but we at Rasa use additional software in addition to for our own Rasa.io newsletter. We have additional tools that allow us to really hone in on people's actions and behaviors to send them smart emails to follow up. So, I mean, of course, you're going to have campaigns that are blast campaigns. You're going to send emails that are just about donation because you have to do that. You need to put it front and center, especially when you're really, in the middle of an important campaign. But use people's behaviors, whether they're opening the email, whether they're clicking on the email to inform future behaviors. And if they're, if they land back on your website, use the activity in their progression and their what they're reading on your website to inform what you send them into the future. So, or send them in the future. There are lots of awesome tools out there that are really sophisticated. I mean, we use Active Campaign at Rasa to learn about people's website behaviors to make our email campaigns more sophisticated.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we still have a little bit of time left. I wanted to see if you had like a real life story of a nonprofit you could tell us that had a really successful email campaign, or they were able to, reach some sort of new metric thanks to Rasa's software.
Sure. So we work with the American Marketing Association. We've been working with them now for 3.5, going on 4 years, and they got out a newsletter probably like every other week to their community of members and non-members, and it was all content that they were producing, and they had to kind of repurpose it or kind of reformat it and rewrite a lot of stuff and place it in their newsletter. And it was taking them so much time to compile everything on top of writing all the content, compiling it, repurposing it, and sending it out. And it just didn't get great engagement, and it didn't really drive renewals, membership renewals in the way that they really wanted. And what they realized is that, wow, there is so much amazing news in the marketing space that we're not necessarily producing, but we know our members want to consume it. So why don't we be the source of truth? Why don't we be the source of information for folks? And so they now look to hundreds of different really authoritative sources in the marketing space. They have them pulling into Rasa. And then from there, they're actually sending a daily campaign or a daily newsletter so that, you know, the graphic design folks can get what they want. The SEO specialists can get what they want. The web designers can get what they want, because not all marketers are the same. So they're really honing in on driving value. They send a valuable, content nutritious email to their people every single day. And then they've seen engagement increase in other ways as well. So it's helped their membership renewal rates. It's helped volunteerism. I mean, there's just a ton of ways in which their entire body of members is much more engaged than it has been in the past.
That is so cool. I love that story.
Yeah, and we've loved working with them.
Yeah, I mean, this is really great information. What final tips would you want to leave nonprofits with as they're working on improving their email campaigns?
Yeah, I'd say that, you know, sometimes it feels daunting to start a new project, but what AI has allowed folks to do is do things faster and smarter, more intelligently. So, you know, give it a try. If you just haven't done a newsletter because you feel like it's going to be too time intensive, I'd say explore tools like Rasa that can make it faster. There's also a really great organization that we're partnered with called Marketing AI Institute, and they're always promoting the latest and greatest tools in the marketing space that leverage AI to make marketers' lives easier, that are approachable and not intimidating.
And if nonprofits do want to learn more about Rasa, how can they learn more about you guys and your services?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our website is our name, rasa.io. So go ahead and go to our website, learn more. You can actually get started with a free trial right from the homepage. We work with a lot of, like I said, you know, nonprofits, associations, professional trade associations. So, and we're working with them in more of an enterprise arrangement. So we can consult with you on your content, on your deliverability, on your design. And so it's more of like a full service arrangement where you can just get started and try the core functionality of the product for free. So before, you know, for a couple weeks. So it's up to you. We have a lot of different options, and, you know, and you can always reach out to me. You can reach me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, I'm happy to connect.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so Rasa is spelled RASA. So you can go to rasa.io, or if you're listening to this while you're driving or something, in the episode description, I'll include that website so people can find you guys, Erica. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.